Those of us who've been practicing meditation during the last day and a half or 24 hours, it'll soon be time for you to go back home and to resume your normal activities, normal duties and responsibilities. However, this need not be understood as leaving behind the practice of Dhamma. In actual fact, it is very important that you understand that the practice of Dhamma should continue, regardless of whether you come to spend time at the temple keeping the 8 precepts, or when you go back home, or when you go to work. The practice of Dhamma is something that hopefully will be with us at all times. Of course, when we live under a special set of conditions, such as we have had, say, here in the Vihara during this period of keeping the 8 precepts and being with a group of people who are committed to the same standard of moral training and receiving encouragement in the development of meditation, it can be somewhat easier to make effort and to apply oneself. And it may be true that when we go back home and there seems to be so many distractions and so many things to do, that it may be a little more difficult to keep up the practice at the same level. However, it should not be all or nothing. There should be some consistency in the practice that can flow from the vihara to the home to work, that can flow with you wherever you go. And during the talks that I've been giving here over the last few days, I have tried to emphasize certain aspects of the practice. And by now I hope that you appreciate that one of the most important aspects is mindfulness. What I mentioned last night and what I spoke on this morning should indicate to you the essential nature of this quality, mindfulness. Because without it there is no possibility. There is no path, there is no training, there is no practice. Without mindfulness, there's no opportunity for applying any understanding that we may have. Without mindfulness, there is no opportunity for making any choice in life. Without mindfulness, there is no sensitivity to life, and we just recreate the old reactions, the old responses, and usually recreate the same old problems over and over again. However, when mindfulness arises and when we can sustain this mindfulness, there are so many more possibilities for us. We can actually begin to apply the wisdom that we have. We can begin to make choices. We can begin to direct our lives. We can begin to take advantage of this human birth and make a truly noble contribution to life. So it is this practice of mindfulness that we must endeavor to carry with us. Even though we live the vihara, even though one may not be sitting formal meditation quite as much as you've been doing during this last day, it is possible and it is necessary that as you leave here and you go home, you take with you this quality called mindfulness. Protect it and develop it. It is your good friend. It will look after you. If you look after mindfulness, mindfulness will look after you. So now, I hope that you have some appreciation of what it is to be mindful. How can you be mindful? What is it to be awake and knowing? It doesn't require any extra effort. It will not be a hindrance to you doing your work, to you living a normal life. There's nothing that is really an obstacle to mindfulness except heedlessness. Activity is not an obstacle to mindfulness. You can be mindful while doing things. Going home, doing work, will not be an obstacle. It is simply necessary to remember, the practice of remembrance. And what should you try and remember? Remember the present moment, this moment. Just this moment. What are you doing? What is happening within you? Know yourself. Know your mind in the present moment. So that through this practice we can look after ourselves. Now we've done a couple of special exercises such as sitting and practicing mindfulness of the breathing. Mindfully breathing in, mindfully breathing out. I've encouraged you to try to do some walking meditation, mindfully stepping, one step at a time. As you get the feel for what it is to be mindful, then you may begin to see how to extend this, to go beyond these formal activities, and to begin to bring meditation into the ordinary, completely ordinary situations. Meditation in action. Mindfulness in action. So what I'd like to encourage you to do is to begin by taking 3, 4, 5 activities that you repeat every day. Simple activities. Start with those simple activities and endeavor to make those activities an exercise in mindfulness. Brushing your teeth is a very good one. Now you all brush your teeth. Some of you brush your teeth a few times a day. But how do you brush your teeth? Is your mind also brushing your teeth? Or is it just your hand that's brushing your teeth? Can you brush your teeth with your mind as well? Or do you need to just let your hand brush your teeth and you're busily dreaming, busily thinking, busily planning? And you think, well, what's the big deal? What's the problem? I can brush my teeth and plan. Well, yes, you can. But the problem is that we do that all the time. It's become a habitual tendency where the mind is so busy thinking, planning, remembering, that it's never living in the moment. We miss so much of life. We're so busy about thinking about life that we miss life. And you may say, What's there to see? What's there to experience? Brushing your teeth is really boring. There's more important things in life. Yes, there may be more important things than brushing your teeth, but this is an exercise that we choose to do in order to train ourselves to experience the moment, this moment, because it is this training that makes us awake, able to live life fully, sensitive to life, rather than just mechanical, habitual creatures drifting through life. So that even though brushing the teeth is nothing special, it's not something terribly special, terribly important, but if we can be mindful while brushing the teeth, that means that's one moment of mindfulness. That may be 1 or 2 minutes of mindfulness. And the only way to become more mindful is to be mindful. Every moment of mindfulness helps us to be mindful in the next moment. There's only one way to develop mindfulness, and that is to be mindful. You will not develop mindfulness by thinking about being mindful. Yes, I'm going to be really mindful tomorrow. I'm going to start the day tomorrow by being really mindful. I'm going to get up and really be mindful all day. So you think about tomorrow. Meanwhile, you're mindless now. You're heedless. You will never become mindful by thinking about being mindful, by planning to be mindful. You become mindful by being mindful in this moment, simple moments. So we take something like brushing one's teeth. Normally we do this exercise so often that it becomes habitual. We just go in the bathroom, grab the toothbrush. Sometimes you get the wrong toothbrush. Grab the toothpaste. Sometimes it's not the toothpaste that you put on your toothbrush. Has that happened to you? Put some other cream on your toothbrush? Not the toothpaste? It can happen. Because we're so lost in our world of thought and dreams. We don't really notice what we're doing very much at all. The only reason we're still alive is just an accident, I think. People think that, oh, how unfortunate that an accident has happened. But it's amazing that we're still alive, I think, because we're so heedless that so many more accidents could happen. When you're driving a motor car, if you think of how many moments, how often the mind is just drifting, thinking about something, and you're still driving, how many accidents could happen? Far more than happen, actually. It's quite amazing that we have so few accidents. So now, instead of just being in this state of automatic, heedless living, we consciously make effort to be mindfully present. We're going to be mindfully brushing our teeth. It doesn't mean we have to brush our teeth in a funny way or in a strange way. We're going to be brushing our teeth. The mind is also going to brush the teeth. So you know when you pick up the toothbrush, there's knowing. The toothpaste, there is knowing. It's not thinking about it. You don't have to start thinking, this is the toothpaste. It's just, there's knowing. You know what you are doing. You put the toothpaste on. You brush your teeth. You know you are brushing your teeth. You know how much effort you're putting in brushing your teeth. How much pressure. What you've brushed and what remains to be brushed. Rather than this taking more time and being an obstacle, you'll find that mindfulness makes you much more efficient. Much more efficient. Much more precise. Because you are doing it fully, mind and body. And it's not like you're trying to concentrate so much, it's just knowing what you're doing. knowing that you're brushing your teeth. That's all, very simple. Silently brushing your teeth. Mindfully brushing your teeth. Brushing your teeth is quite a pleasant experience, actually. You can enjoy brushing your teeth. Quite enjoyable. So to do this as an exercise, see, it doesn't take any time. It doesn't require any time. You're going to brush your teeth. If anything, it will save you time. If anything, it will save your teeth, because you'll brush them better. And you won't waste time by brushing only half of your teeth and forgetting the other half. So this is one exercise that we can do. Just one thing, one normal aspect of life. Another one is, say, going for a walk. Now, we all have to walk. We should walk. It's good for you to walk. It's good to do some walking. Even if it's something like just to go for a walk, is a very good thing to do for exercise. But sometimes it's also necessary to walk, to go from one place to another for some particular purpose. But usually we let the body walk by itself, and the mind has gone somewhere else. All these mindless bodies walking around, very dangerous. Letting your body go for a walk by itself is not a good idea. In other words, we go for a walk, we're walking even whether it's from here to the shrine room, or whether it's from here to the motor car, or from here to work, or we're walking through a park, we go for a walk, but are we walking? Are we really walking? The body is walking, that's obvious, but what is the mind doing? Is the mind walking with the body? Most often, no. The mind is lost, dreaming, thinking, planning, remembering, all over the place, worrying, creating heaven, creating hell, just all over the place. So the body keeps walking and the mind keeps dreaming. It's a wonder that we don't trip more often. It's a wonder that we don't have more accidents. Now you say, well, I can still walk, I don't trip. I can walk and I can dream at the same time. And good. Yes, you can, but again, that becomes the habit of living. That's how you live. That's how we live all of life, usually. And that's why we miss out on life. That's why we miss out so much of life. That's why we are so insensitive to others, to situations. That's why wisdom cannot arise, understanding cannot arise. That's why we cannot learn from experience. We have so many experiences, but we don't learn very much. We don't become wise, we just become more experienced, more and more experiences, but not more wise. Because we haven't developed this presence of mind, wakefulness of mind, to be sensitive, to be able to learn. So it is important to change this habit, bring mindfulness into the ordinary situation. So when we go for a walk, intentionally we walk with mind and body. The mind walks with the body. The mind and the body walking together. It doesn't require us to do some fancy walk. Doesn't need us to walk slowly or in some strange way. It's not going to take any more time. You just walk. If you have to walk fast, you walk fast. If there's no rush, you walk slowly. The difference, though, is that now the mind is walking with the body. This does not mean that we are concentrating on one step necessarily. It doesn't mean concentration. Mindfulness does not mean concentration. Mindfulness means knowing, being awake, being present with this moment. So if I'm walking, then the mind is walking with the body. I experience the body walking. I am walking. It doesn't require any training. You don't have to go and learn how to do it. All you have to do is allow the mind to be with the body and walk. To make it a little easier, if you find it difficult to do it, is just feel the legs moving. Just go with the legs. One leg taking one step at a time. But you can actually do it just with the body. See, we're using the posture. We're using the physical activity as our point of reference. We allow the mind to be with the physical activity, such as brushing the teeth. This one is walking, and you just walk. The mind walking with the body. The mind and body together walking. Silently walking. Peacefully walking. You can walk fast, you can walk slowly. It's all the same. This will not take any extra time. It will save you time. You will not get lost. So, this is mindfully walking. Another one is when you shower. Everybody in a hot country like this, you probably shower at least once a day. But again, when we shower, when we wash, we usually allow the body to wash the body, but the mind is all over the place. Too busy. Again, this is an excellent opportunity to develop mindfulness. Because showering is something you have to do every day. It's something usually that is one does alone, so you don't have to talk. And it only takes a short time, so it's not like, it's only 5 minutes. So then do it with mindfulness. When you go in the shower, make sure the mind goes with you. Take your mind with you. Give your mind a good wash as well. Wash out all that fantasy, all that imagery, all that dialogue, all that anxiety, all that thinking. Just wash it all out. Stay with the body. Know that you're washing. Just be with that physical activity. Nothing special, but mindfully washing. Doesn't take any extra time. If anything, it will save you time. It will probably save water as well. So these are just some isolated activities during the day that I'd like you to try and practice mindfulness in. There are many other ones. There's washing the dishes, if you have to wash the dishes. Sweeping the floor. Can you sweep the floor mindfully? It's a wonderful opportunity. Sweeping leaves. Mindfully sweeping leaves. What's it like to be mindful when sweeping leaves? What's it like when you're mindfully sweeping the floor? Nothing special. The mind is sweeping with the body, that's all. It doesn't mean concentrating on some little activity, it just means the mind and the body in that activity together. The mind present with that activity. So we use the physical activity, the physical posture, the physical movement to help anchor the mind in the present moment. And we train ourselves in this way, beginning with some special activities during the day that we have to do, and gradually we can expand it so that this begins to encompass more and more of our day, so that we begin to experience mindfulness for most of the day rather than just a little bit of the day. At first, when we begin, my teacher said that it was like a tap that's been left on just a little bit and it drips. That's our mindfulness. Drip, then a long time before the next drip, and the next drip. So we're just dripping. Every now and again we have a moment of mindfulness. But if we practice this and consciously remember to be awake in the moment more and more, the drips become faster, drip, drip, drip. And if we keep on doing it, it's possible for the drip to turn into a flowing stream of water, so that mindfulness flows in our lives, from one thing to another, from one moment to another. We are centered, we are awake, we are mindful. But this requires the effort to do it. It requires the training, the intention to do it. It will not happen by itself. It will not happen by itself because the power of habit is so strong. The power of heedlessness is so strong. It does require the intention to break the habit of heedlessness and bring wakefulness, mindfulness into the moment, into the day. So we begin with these simple exercises, using the posture, using the movement. Now, what I encourage very much is the understanding that mindfulness has its own purifying effect. When you are mindful, that is a skillful state of mind. And quite automatically, it will prevent the arising of many unskillful states of mind. Mindfulness has power to purify if it is sustained. It can change our whole life. Don't think that to be mindful means that you will be without thought. Maybe this is one misunderstanding that I should correct first of all, because I've been saying when you're silently walking, mindfully walking, silently walking, brushing your teeth mindfully, silently, peacefully. Yes, it is quite true that when we are mindful, the amount of thinking will be much less, because a lot of the thinking is unnecessary. A lot of the thinking is just chatter, just like in a newspaper. How much news is there in a newspaper that's worth reading? Most of it is just trivia, useless. You could just throw it all away. If you just had one page, would be enough news usually. And it's the same with our speech. How much of our talking is really worth anything? Most of it is just chatter. The thinking is even worse. The amount of thinking that we do and how much of it is really necessary and useful. Most of it is just habitual thinking. The mind just has to think because it's addicted to thinking. It doesn't know how to stop. Just like a little baby, just will talk. On the plane coming from Perth, there was this little girl sitting behind me, and she just was shouting, just babbling. I couldn't understand. It wasn't like she was talking. She was too young to talk, and she was I think she was trying to sing, and just going on and on, louder and louder and louder. And just making a noise, just for the sake of making a noise. And that's what our minds are like. It's just like making a noise for the sake of making a noise. So that through the practice of mindfulness, the amount of useless thinking, habitual thinking, certainly will diminish. It's just not necessary to be thinking all the time. It's not. But it doesn't mean that we will have no thoughts, or that we won't be able to think. Because we can think. We can think mindfully. Just like we can walk mindfully, we can also think mindfully. Mindful thinking, again, is just simply knowing that one is thinking. Thinking fully. Thinking with the whole mind. Directed, clear thinking. That is a thought that is of value to us. That is the thought that can solve problems. That is the thought that will not create problems. It's associated with sati, with mindfulness, therefore it will be skillful thinking. So that when we develop mindfulness, certainly a lot of the unnecessary thinking, which is just chatter of the mind, will diminish. It's not necessary to be thinking every moment of the day. Let your mind rest for a while. It gets tired thinking all the time. Let's put thinking aside and just experience life. Enjoy a quiet, peaceful walk. Enjoy a quiet, peaceful moment without that chatter in the mind. Even though in Buddhism we say that life is suffering, don't misunderstand and think that life is all misery. That's not what suffering means. In the three characteristics, when the Buddha said that life or samsara is anicca, dukkha, anatta, impermanent, unsatisfactory and not self. Unsatisfactoriness does not mean that it is all misery, all unpleasant, all suffering. No, that's not correct. Dukkha simply means that conditioned existence cannot satisfy us completely. By its nature, it is impermanent. It cannot give us permanent happiness. That's all. It doesn't mean there is no happiness in the world. There is no pleasant experience in the world. There is no joy in the world. That's not true. There are many pleasant experiences in the world. There's dukkha vedana, sukha vedana, and the adukkama sukha, the neutral vedana. That's part of life. And in actual fact, I think for a good portion of our lives, I don't know about you, I'm just assuming this, but speaking for myself, a good portion of my life is very pleasant. I don't have so many occasions when I'm tortured. Most moments, most times, it's quite pleasant. Not so unpleasant. But because we're so heedless, we don't experience, we don't feel, we don't notice, we don't live life. We miss out on so many pleasant moments. An example of this, you're going out to dinner, this very good restaurant. So you've been thinking about this, going out to dinner tonight, this very good restaurant, they have delicious food. You're really thinking about it. Wonderful. You're looking forward to it. And of course, because you're looking forward to tonight, you're not able to meditate. You're not able to do your work as effectively and efficiently as you should be, because you're looking forward to this wonderful dinner tonight, going out. So then you're not mindful during the day because you're wandering around, expecting, looking forward to. So then you eventually get to the restaurant and you're looking forward to the dinner, to the meal, and you sit down, and you're having a conversation. And then they bring the food out and you taste it. You taste delicious. And then what? Then your mind is immediately thinking about something else. Oh, we're going to the movies. We're going to go to the movies tonight and watch that wonderful new movie. I don't know what's the new movie. Whatever is the new movie on this week. So then the rest of the meal, do you really eat it? You let your body eat it. You let your mouth eat it, but you don't eat it. Do you really notice the taste? Do you really enjoy the pleasant experience of eating? Very few of us do. Because the mind is thinking about something else, somewhere else. We're busily imagining, thinking about something else, living somewhere else. So we've looked forward to this occasion for so long, all day. We're paying all this money for it. but we don't derive so much joy and happiness from it. We eat it habitually. And there are so many moments in our lives which are actually quite pleasant, that we don't experience, that we don't enjoy, simply because we're not there. Well, the body is there, all right. We're doing whatever it is, but the mind is not there. Hasn't got the time to enjoy the moment. It's busily planning something else. But with mindfulness, as we develop this mindfulness, we can abide in the moment more and more, and many of these moments are very pleasant experiences. Going for a walk is a very pleasant experience. Having your cup of coffee is a very pleasant experience. To have a cup of coffee in the morning, to have your piece of toast or whatever you eat, it's actually a very, very pleasant, enjoyable moment. Nothing spectacular. I don't think you'd write poetry about it, but it's actually a very pleasant experience, having a cup of coffee. If you're there, if you're drinking it, if you're eating the toast, instead of just allowing the body to do it and you're lost somewhere else. So with mindfulness we derive so much more pleasure, so much more happiness out of life, because we live life more fully, and a lot of life has a lot of pleasant experience, either neutral or pleasant. There is not so much that is all unpleasant. So this is the first advantage. Then with regards to this thinking, to come back with the thinking, it doesn't mean that we will have no thoughts. We can think, and thoughts will come into the mind. But if it's just trivial thought, just let it go out of the mind, that's all, and come back to the moment. Trivial thoughts come, let them go, just like in the meditation. If it is something important to think, then think it fully, mind and body. With your full mind, think these thoughts. If there is a plan to make the plan. If you have to think about tomorrow, think about tomorrow. If you have to remember something, remember it. Do it with mindfulness, the fullness of mind. And this will be of great benefit to us. So then, the first advantages is that we experience more of life, and much of life is pleasant. Being mindful is not a torturous exercise. Some meditators think that this practice of being mindful is really hard work. It's really hard going. The practice of mindfulness is not hard work. It's very easy. It's easier to be mindful than to be heedless. Actually, it's more pleasant. But we think that the practice of mindfulness, we associate it to be some particular exercise in concentration, which is maybe hard work for a while. Or our attitude is wrong with regards when we are mindful. I remember one year I was living alone, and I was doing very intensive meditation for a month. And just being all alone in this forest, I was just sitting meditation, and then I'd walk, and then I'd sit, and then I'd walk. And I remember that towards the end of the month I began to feel rather tired of this. So I was doing this walking meditation, and this thought came into my mind. This is really getting really dreary. Having to be mindful is really dreary. When am I going to become enlightened so I don't have to be mindful anymore? And then I realized what I was thinking. What a foolish thing. To be mindful means to be completely, to be enlightened means to be completely mindful. So here I was thinking to be mindful is really a dreary burden. I wish I could become enlightened so I don't have to be mindful anymore. That's wrong understanding in many ways. First, we see that mindfulness is a practice of, it's dreary or unpleasant, because we think we want to do something else. But in actual fact, mindfulness is simply being in the moment, relaxed. To be mindful is to be relaxed, is to be peaceful, is to enjoy the moment. It's not hard work. Just relax, settle down, enjoy this moment. We're not practicing mindfulness just to become enlightened. The practice of mindfulness is its own reward, because to be enlightened means to be mindful. When we are mindful, we are awake already. Now, the reason why it feels like a strain is because of the habit that we want to think and plan. But if we can just train ourselves and enjoy the moment, enjoy the walk. This is why I say when walking meditation, try to encourage the mind, peacefully walking, enjoying the walk. Just enjoy the walk, one step at a time. It's very pleasant. Just allow the mind to settle down and enjoy that moment, one step. Enjoy these moments of wakefulness. It's not hard work. It's quite pleasant, quite a pleasant abiding. So that we can develop this practice in every aspect of our lives. It makes us even more effective, not less effective. It relieves us of a lot of unnecessary trivia in the mind. It enables us to experience so much more of life, so many more pleasant things in life. And it makes us truly sensitive. We can become sensitive beings. When we are mindful, we are sensitive to time, to place, to people. It is the basis for compassion. Where there is mindfulness, compassion arises because you are sensitive, you feel another human being, you feel the needs of others, you're aware. So much of the hurt, so much of the cruelty that we bring into life is not intentional. It is through insensitivity. I mean, sometimes we do say harsh things and do harsh things, cruel things, intentionally. But most of the time, it's unintentional. We say things, we do things with no sensitivity, and we hurt others, and we hurt even ourselves. With mindfulness, we can be that much more sensitive to those around us, because we are present. When we are present, we can see, we can hear, we can see where people are at, what they need. We're not living in our own little enclosed fantasy world, going around bumping into people and stepping on people's toes. We are truly sensitive to them. We can see where they are, what they're feeling, how they're feeling, what they need. And through that sensitivity, of course, there is the possibility of compassion, offering, helping, the right word, the kind word. Through mindfulness, we can be much more sensitive and therefore much more compassionate. And this is very important because we live with each other. The problem with a human being is that a human being does not want to live alone usually, but human beings don't know how to live together either. So that's a real problem now. And it's becoming more of a problem because the number of people are increasing. So there is a need for this sensitivity to each other, so that compassion becomes part of our lives. And of course, the last benefit, not necessarily the last, but maybe the last that I will speak on, is that we will be able to apply the wisdom that we have. We have already a lot of wisdom. You have a lot of wisdom. You have a lot of understanding. You've heard enough. It's being able to apply it that is the problem. It's being able to live it that is the problem. And the way to be able to apply it and to live it is through mindfulness. When we are awake, when we are present, we are sensitive to the moment, and so we can choose to respond. No aspect of our body, our minds, personality, habits, tendencies is permanent. It's just a result of conditioning. Through mindfulness we can shape ourselves, we can shape our personalities, we can shape the contents of our minds, we can shape our lives, we can shape this world for the better. So that this mindfulness opens new doorways to us. But through heedlessness, even that which has been developed can be lost so easily. So, as you leave the vihara today and go back home, I'd like to encourage you to take with you this practice of mindfulness, to develop it as much as you can in your lives. It requires nothing extra from you. It requires no extra time. It requires no special activity. But of course your life must be supportive, your lifestyle. I'm assuming your lifestyle is already supportive. To develop it as much as you can in your lives, it requires nothing extra from you. It requires no extra time. It requires no special activity. But of course your life must be supportive, your lifestyle. I'm assuming your lifestyle is already supportive. I am assuming that your lifestyle is already compatible with the Dhamma. I'm assuming that you already understand this much, that your lifestyle must be compatible. You live within the boundaries of morality, so that immediately you've cut out a whole host of disruptive, destructive, negative activities. So your life is already contained within a framework. That's enough now. Your life is compatible. So just develop this mindfulness in your life, in your activity. No one will know that you're doing anything special, but everybody will benefit from the quality of your mind and the quality of your heart. So we go through life and we can be mindful. And when we are mindful, we can be a blessing to life. So I encourage you all to try and develop this aspect of the practice. And I hope that you have some appreciation of its value, but also how to do it. Are there any questions now? Well, mindfulness is the crucial part of the Eightfold Path. And it is through mindfulness that we can develop concentration. And it is through concentration, right concentration, that insight can arise. And it is through insight that liberation results. It is not mindfulness alone that purifies. It is not actually concentration that purifies. But these are the qualities of mind that make possible insight. It is the insight that truly purifies the mind. that cuts away the basic ignorance and its associated foolishness of desire and aversion. Through mindfulness, so training in mindfulness in daily life, that is gaining, this quality of Dhamma is gaining momentum. It has its purifying effect, as I've been trying to point out. It automatically will bring much more skillful states of mind, many benefits. But also if we are mindful during the day, then it is a lot easier to meditate and be mindful during the meditation and therefore develop concentration. And it is through the development of mindfulness and concentration that the mind becomes a tool fit for work, the work of insight, or that the mind becomes a fit receptacle for the Dhamma, if you wish. The Dhamma is, the truth is. It's never lost, it's nowhere far away, it's right here, right now. The truth of the way things are now is never hidden, but it's obscured by our own ignorance. Our minds are just living in a dream. We don't see the reality, we don't see truth. The mind is not fit for the Dhamma. The mind is not fit to see the Dhamma. So we don't see it, even though it's there. But the mind can be trained, it can be polished, it can be cleansed, it can be sharpened, so that it is able to see things as they are, so that it can break out of the delusion. It can become a fit receptacle, if you wish, for truth. And then the mind sees truth, sees the way things are. To see truth does not mean to see truth somewhere else, about something else. It's not like you go and see something else. Seeing truth means seeing the true nature of that which is now, the way things are, seeing it according to true nature. It's here all the time, it always is, regardless of where, when, regardless of what happens, the truth is. And because it's simply the truth of the way things are. So that the practice of mindfulness is developing one step on the Eightfold Path. A very important step. It's part of the path. Of course, we can't talk about the whole path all at once, so we usually point out various aspects of it. The whole path must be in harmony. The whole path must be developed. Today I emphasize mindfulness, and only one aspect of mindfulness. Mindfulness as a general practice in our daily lives. But that, of course, must be supported by the rest of the path. And in itself it makes possible the development of the path. If we practice mindfulness in our daily lives, when we come to do formal meditation, it's a lot easier. So if you practice only half an hour of meditation, the rest of the day you're just all over the place, all scattered and heedless, well, you're never going to gain much momentum in meditation. Then you come at the end of the day and sit for another half hour, but all you've got is the residue of a heedless day. The mind's just full of heedless habits. And half an hour is not long enough to clear it. So all you have is the fallout from a heedless living. And it's not very pleasant to meditate either, because your mind is just so difficult to work with. So then it's not pleasant to meditate, and you start thinking, oh, this meditation is I don't feel like it tonight, I won't do it. So you don't do it. Then the less you do it, the more difficult it becomes. So in the end you just don't do it at all. And so you give up and don't do it, because it's difficult to do it when the mind is so heedless and restless and all the hindrances are so strong. But if we can also support our formal meditation with the informal meditation of mindfulness in our daily lives, then you'll find that when we come to sit meditation, it'll be a lot easier, because we already have a momentum of mindfulness, and we've been sustaining that momentum of mindfulness. When we come and sit, then we find that the mind becomes, well, it is mindful, and so we can concentrate it more easily, because developing concentration requires having mindfulness. Without mindfulness, we cannot develop concentration. You cannot concentrate the mind until you have mindfulness that knows what the mind is doing. If you don't know what the mind is doing, there's no way of concentrating it. When we have mindfulness, we can develop concentration. Also, it works the other way. If we practice meditation, formal meditation, and we have some good concentration, of course it makes it easier for us to be mindful, because the mind has strength, clarity. If you've been doing formal meditation for a few hours, you just have that bit more clarity, and you can go and do other things, and you'll find the mindfulness has more momentum. It's easier to be mindful. So these two practices, the practice of formal meditation, sitting, concentration, and walking meditation, and the practice of informal meditation, that is mindfulness in daily life, support each other and depend on each other. And when developed in conjunction, they can have great fruit, great benefits. And the ultimate benefit, of course, is enlightenment, which means that the mind gains so much momentum, so much clarity, so much precision, that eventually it becomes a receptacle fit for Dhamma, or it becomes a tool fit for the work of penetrating through ignorance and seeing truth. So that although the Buddha taught the Eightfold Path, and in this path it only goes up to samadhi, samma samadhi, but in actual fact, in other suttas, he has also said that it is through samma samadhi that insight, or yatha buddha jnana dassana, knowledge and vision of things as they are, arise. And it is through this knowledge and vision of things as they are that the disenchantment and the dispassion and the liberation and the knowledge of that liberation arises. So that it is through mindfulness that all of this is possible. Not just mindfulness. We cannot take any one part, any one step, any one factor of the path and say, this is the one, just do this one. Because none of them stand alone. They all depend on each other. Mindfulness alone still is not sufficient. It must be based on right view, right aspiration. Your life must be compatible with morality. And mindfulness must be strengthened by the concentration. So, and the same with any other factor on the path, you'll find that it does not stand alone. No factor stands alone, but the path in harmony, the path in its wholeness is what results in enlightenment. Otherwise the Buddha wouldn't have taught 8 factors. He said, well, there's only this one, just do this one. But we emphasize different aspects at different times in the hope that eventually one gets a comprehensive view, sees the relative benefits of each aspect. Like this earlier today, I spoke on the importance of right view and right thought as a way of relieving suffering. But to apply the right view and right thought, you have to be mindful. Need to be mindful. The other day I spoke about the power of the mind that has concentration, how it has power to change. But again, that requires mindfulness, and it requires right view and right understanding, right thought, in order to know what to change, what to do. These are factors that are interrelated, mutually supportive. Any other questions? Well, I would say that's not the fault of mindfulness, but the fault of forgetfulness. You forgot what you were supposed to be doing when you got to the office. It's not the fault of your mindfulness. You should have remembered. Well, of course, it is quite true that if we just give less time to thinking, if you want to give more time to thinking, it's true, you can be driving and thinking and planning something, and you can be walking and planning something, and sometimes it's very nice to do that, or very fruitful to do that. I mean, I do it too. It's if I want to think about something, sometimes I just go for a walk and I think about that. And that is, but even then, you're doing it with intention. You're allowing this to come into your mind, to see it in its various aspects, so that there can be still mindfulness when you're doing that. But of course, what I was more or less pointing to was the heedless, that it becomes just a habit. It's just useless thinking. It's not a purposeful thinking. It's just something cluttering your mind, just trivia, just obsessive, just making the mind confused with unnecessary thinking. So now, when you're driving, how is that thinking really, how much do you really have to think about the office? Well, it may be necessary that you have to think something about the office, but it is quite dangerous as well, though. So you may have forgotten something, but it would have been much worse if you would have had an accident. No, the point I want to make here is, yes, it is possible to do more than one thing. Like you can be driving and you can be thinking, because your mind is very fast. You can do that. But the question is whether it is advisable or not, and how much, before that just becomes a heedless way of living. So that what would have been better, I would think, is something like, okay, I'm driving, then thoughts will come into my mind. Even whether I want to think or not, thoughts will come. I don't drive, by the way, but if I pretend I'm driving, and then thoughts come into my mind. If it's just trivial, I just let it go. It's unimportant. If it is something important, then I would try to make a note, and I must do that. And if you're really mindful, that registering of that should be even better. In other words, the mindful, concentrated thought should register, so you should remember it more easily, better. But if you're not so good at remembering, maybe best to write it down, make a little note somewhere, and then put it aside. Well, just try to make a mental note. When I get there, I must do that. Now, remember, tell yourself. So it's more just remembering, really. It's not the fault of mindfulness. It's just if you forgot. But this is why I did try and explain that it doesn't mean you can't think. It's just knowing how much you have to think. Of course, you have to think. You have to think about life. You have to think about what you're going to do, and you have to make plans, but how much? Because we mustn't forget the present. So we must be able to enjoy the present moment, and even when we're thinking, though, if one does it mindfully, you're thinking, that's all right. You're thinking in the present. The thinking has a purpose. The thinking is for a purpose. So that can be all right. I don't think that the practice of mindfulness will make us less efficient, less effective. I don't think we'll miss out on so much. I think we will gain much more, from my experience anyway. I don't think we will miss out. Of course we do forget, sometimes we forget things, but that's not because of mindfulness, it's just because of bad memory. If you practice this mindfulness, won't it hinder the arising of creative thoughts? Because sometimes when I'm doing gardening or when I'm having a walk, all sorts of creative thoughts come into my mind. And I find the opposite. When my mind is quite peaceful and relaxed, and I'm not cluttering it, not just stuffing it with all sorts of useless thoughts or obsessions, when I allow my mind to just settle and relaxed in the moment, then things, useful things can come into my mind. Good thoughts, useful thoughts, maybe quite creative things can come into my mind. But if my mind is all cluttered and busy, then usually nothing very much comes up, just more useless thinking. It's the same with, it's just that you allow the mind to settle. It becomes clear. It's like you have this glass of, say, water with a lot of matter in it, a lot of particles in it, and it's quite cloudy. It's all stirred up and it's quite cloudy, the water, unclear, and you just leave it alone, and all these particles settle to the bottom, and the water is quite clear, and you can see through the water. That's like the mind. If we allow it to be just more peaceful, a lot of things become a lot clearer. A lot of the problems will resolve by themselves. See, sometimes we of course we all have problems, and we try to think our problems to a conclusion. But when your mind is in a state of confusion and you think more and more, it just becomes more and more confused, and the problem becomes more and more complicated. So sometimes it's good to just let the problem be. Just let it be and let the mind become quiet. Just let it settle down, and then you find that the answer to the problem may become very clear. It'll become clear to you. In the clear mind, in the peaceful mind, then things become clear. Oh, that's why this is happening. Oh, that's why. That's the problem. This is what I should do. It's very clear. This is why I'm in such a state. As I find this very useful for all sorts of problems that, say, may come up. So you can't resolve it. So you just let it be and let the mind settle down. Go for a walk and just peacefully walking. Just go for a walk, the mind and the body walking. Not trying to solve the problem, just let it settle down. And when the mind settles down, then things clear up. What is actually the problem? Why is this happening? What should I do? It just becomes obvious to you. Many problems can be resolved just by allowing the mind to quieten down. If you keep on thinking about it, it just makes the mind more confused. It's just like stirring up the water more and more, and less likely to see anything. It's very good. You must go and look for it. And then somebody else asked me about anatta. And these are very intriguing questions, you see. Says, yes, we talk about the mind, the conditioned mind. Watch your thoughts, yes. Well, by now you can get an appreciation for this, watching the thoughts, watching the mood, watching the feelings, this mindfulness. That's very good. You can watch your mind, but who's watching it? Who's watching it? Very interesting. Who is this watching? Who is this knowing? And this is, of course, a new aspect of the meditation, which we haven't got into. But it is extremely fascinating. It is the one thing that arouses the greatest interest, because it is questioning your own existence. Although in Buddhism we teach anatta, that we all feel that we are somebody. I'm sure there's no one here who feels they're no one. Well, you feel there's somebody, must be somebody. Maybe not so important, but I'm somebody. Because that's this is the way we experience life is through our senses, and the sensory experience is always object and subject, me. I'm the subject. And even in meditation, I'm watching, me. I'm watching these thoughts. I know you thoughts. And the way we speak, the whole language is all based on me, the subject. It's all based on that. And of course our feelings, our instinctual feelings, all come from the sense of me as a separate entity. So what is this mind? What is this knowing? And who am I? Who are you? Fascinating, isn't it? How old are you now and you still don't know who you are? If you're really honest, of course you can tell me your name, you can tell me a lot about you, but that's not what you are. I'm a man. Yes, well, your body's a man. Physical body. Is that what you are? Is that really what you are? Your thinking, your thoughts, your feeling, is that really what you are? If it is really what you are, how come you can objectify it? How come you can see the thoughts coming and going? How come you can see the feelings changing? This morning maybe you felt depressed, now you feel happy. Does that mean that you died, and when the feeling of depression dies, you die with it? So who are you? Where are you? You look for yourself. Where are you in this body? Are you in this body? Are you this body? Are you in it? Where are you? Or are you outside the body? Somebody told me this morning that they had out of the body experience. Well, if you're not the body, then hop out of it. Just hop out of it. Go. Where are you in this body? What are you? Where are you? It's fascinating, isn't it? What is the difference between you sitting here and a corpse laying in the morgue? Have you seen a corpse? We don't call you a corpse. We call you a man or woman, a living human being. What's the difference between the corpse laying there and you sitting here? What's the difference? The bodies are much the same. What is that which animates, gives life? That is the mind, you say. Okay, what is this mind? You can see the mental activities, you can think, you can remember, you can imagine, you can feel. But yet through this practice of meditation we're saying, watch these things. How can you watch these things if those things are you? I can see you because you're not me. You're not me. You come and you go. I can see you coming and going. You're not me. I'm me because I'm here. You come and you go, but I'm here. So now, in your own mind. You see, watch your thoughts, you watch your feelings, you watch your various states of mind come and go. They can't be you, because they're coming and they're going. They're guests of your mind. But who is the host? Who are you? Who are you? Where are you? What are you? This is fascinating. What's the point of knowing anything else in this world if we don't even know who we are? There you go. How much time will you spend accumulating so much knowledge about everything else and you don't even know who you are? Imagine that. You go through the airport, the checkpoint at the passport, and they say, "Who are you?" And you say, "I don't know." Very embarrassing. Then if you're really some smart Buddhist, you'd say, "I'm Sunyata." And so they write down Mr. Sunyata on your... I'm nobody. I don't exist. It is very intriguing to understand really about the mind. When we say the mind, yes, this mind, the conditioned aspect of the mind, these are the characteristics, mental activities. We can see these, we can objectify it. What is it that objectifies? It is this knowing of the mind. But what is this knowing? What is this knowing? This is a most marvelous investigation. If you wish to understand anatta, this is a very direct way to understand anatta. The essence of mind is knowing, and it is empty. Its purpose is to make known. But there is no one who knows the knowing. That would be ridiculous. The purpose of the knowing is to make known, is to objectify. But it, in itself, can never become the object. It can never become the object. But it can be. To understand this, you must meditate. You must meditate more. Make the mind very quiet. Make the mind very quiet. Make the mind very peaceful. And find yourself. Where am I? Who am I? I'm me. But who is this me? Well, I'm me. No, you're not. I am. Can you find this moment of knowing and abide in this knowing and disappear? Because in the moment of knowing, there can be no you. There can be no you because you are just a thought, you are just a concept. In the moment of knowing, there is no you, there's no room. There's no need. There's no old or young, male or female, Malaysian or Australian, layperson or monk. There's no room for all of that. That is just concepts, conceptual. They are just formations in the mind. They are conditions, guests in the mind. They have their realities, not that they are not real, they have their reality, but they are in the realm of duality, conditioned. But as to the essence of the mind, there is no self. There's no room for a self. So this is an aspect of meditation which is very interesting to us, I think, because we all have this Well, I think an intuitive need to know, an intuitive interest in wanting to know, what am I and who am I anyway? Or we should have. But this inquiry cannot be done with a noisy mind. It just goes around in circles. The inquiry must be done with a quiet mind, a peaceful mind. With a quiet, peaceful mind, it is possible to inquire, to look deeply, to turn the attention inwards to the source. Before you are born, what is there? Before the thought, I am, is born, what is there? After that thought dies, what is there? It's for each one of us to take an interest. Maybe on another occasion, if there is interest in this sort of inquiry, I will speak on it at more length. Any other question? Well, when you've got a bad cold and a runny nose, it's probably best not to do anapanasati. You probably can't breathe through your nose anyway. That may not be suitable to do anapanasati. Maybe you'll just have to practice like being with this unpleasant experience, unpleasant feeling in the body, and being peaceful with it. Just being with the body, aware of the body, aware of the blocked nose, aware of the headache, if you wish, and aware of this state of body, just mindful of this body, not concentrating on one thing, but just, again, abiding peacefully with this state, not making a problem, not making suffering, just relaxing and being at peace with the body, just as it is. Maybe you can't develop strong concentration, but you can be peaceful with the state of body, and you can be mindful of the state of body. And that is meditation. Maybe not concentration, but that is meditation. But if there are questions, please ask them. Through physical exercise? Oh yes, you can be mindful when doing physical exercise. You can be mindful when running. You can be mindful when doing yoga. You can be mindful when doing Tai Chi. You can be mindful when swimming. You can be mindful when doing weightlifting or whatever it's... Yes. In fact, in our Buddhist center in Perth, we teach yoga and Tai Chi because I see them as... the monks don't teach it, but we have people teaching for the lay community who are interested because they are very compatible with meditation, very useful for developing mindfulness. And then the other forms of exercise, yes, you can develop mindfulness around the exercise, and that will probably mean that the exercise will be better. You won't strain yourself too much. You'll be sensitive to the body and what you are doing. And so it will, more than likely, the exercise will be more beneficial. Yes, quite good. I think it may be difficult to develop mindfulness and aerobics. I've never been to an aerobics class, but I hear they're quite wild and loud and crazy. I'm not sure about mindfulness there. It may be a bit difficult. But normal exercises, I would think it should be no problem. Will you take the 5 precepts before going back today? Or do you want to stay on the 8 precepts? You can stay on the 8 precepts if you like, until next year. But otherwise, maybe I'll give you the 5 precepts, and then we can finish. And people who wish to stay and ask questions further, they can. Quite all right. Maybe I'll give you the 5 precepts first, and then yes, then we can make the announcements and we'll pay homage to the Buddha and finish. We bow together 3 times first. Mayang Bante,
Mayang Bante,
Tisaranena Saha,
Tisaranena Saha,
Panchasilani Yachama,
Panchasilani Yachama,
Dutiyampi Mayang Bante,
Dutiyampi Mayang Bante,
Tisaranena Saha,
Tisaranena Saha,
Panchasilani Yachama,
Panchasilani Yachama,
Tatiyampi Mayang Bante,
Tatiyampi Mayang Bante,
Tisaranena Saha,
Tisaranena Saha,
Panchasilani Yachama.
Panchasilani Yachama.
And now I will give you the first, I will pay homage to the Buddha 3 times, and then you can repeat it 3 times. Namo Tatsa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tatsa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tatsa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchāmi.
Tisarana-gamanang nititaṃ. Pranatipata veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Pranatipata veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Atinādāna veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Atinādāna veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Kāme sumicācara veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Kāmesu micācara veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Musavāda veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Musavāda veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Sorameraya majapamadatana veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Suramiraya majapamadatana veramani sikkhapadang sammadhiyami.
Imani pañcasikkhāpadāni sīlena sukatiṃ yanti sīlena pokasampatam. Sīlena nibutiṃ yanti tasmā sīlaṃ visottayē.
Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.
Plenty of advice, but I'll just give you a blessing in the traditional Buddhist way for your generous offering, and in gratitude for the occasion to practice Dhamma together. Yatha varivaha pura paripurenti sagarang evam eva ito tinang petanang upakapati ichitang patitang tumhang kipameva sami chato sabbe purentu sankapam chanto panaraso yatta manichoti iraso yatta sappetiyo vivajanto Sabbaro vinasatu mate bhavandvantarayo sukhitika yoko bhavan apivadanasi mesanicang utapacayino cattaro dhamma vatanti ayuvanno sukang balang bhavantu sabba mangalang rakantu sabba devata Sabba buddhanubhavena sabba dhammanubhavena sabba sankhanubhavena sada soti bhavantu te. I wish you all ayu vanna sukha phala.